Welcome to the Honey for Your Heart podcast. I'm your host, Bryson Kessler, and I'm here to invite you into the messy middle of those unexpected moments in life. As the owner of Clover and Bee, a women's boutique in Birmingham, I am struck by the stories, spirits, and special wisdom of the women who enter our store. And now I'm here to share these stories with you in hopes to provide sisterhood as sweet as honey. My heart is that pressing play on this podcast will be just as warm of a welcome as walking through our doors. I'm Bryson, and this is the Honey for Your Heart podcast. Welcome back to Honey for Your Heart. I am so enjoying this season and the opportunity to connect with so many of you through my story. But before I say anything else today, I want to read something that I wrote during Beth's time in hospice. These words came from a place of deep waiting, written in real time, sitting in the in-between. And even as I read them now, I'm reminded how kind the Lord was to meet me right there in those moments. I wrote, "Right now, we are simply waiting on the Lord. Honestly, none of us expected to be waiting this long. And while we do believe there is purpose in this waiting, it is still very difficult to understand. There's a strange tension to it all. The days feel like years, but the hours slip by in a blink. We give Beth her medications every hour around the clock, and each time the alarm goes off, it feels like we just gave the last dose 5 minutes ago. How can an hour have already passed? And yet somehow each day stretched on endlessly." That was the reality of waiting. Not poetic, not neat, just very real. And I would bet for many of you, just the mention of the word waiting brings a knot to your stomach or tension to your mind. You've been there. Waiting on the Lord is one of the hardest places to be, yet also one of the most holy. Waiting does something strange to time. Hours disappear and days feel endless. You're fully present, yet suspended. You're doing something constantly, and yet nothing feels like progress. Oh, how I remember that so well. And that's where the waiting begins to feel passive. But Scripture tells us something very different. Psalm 130 says, "I wait for the Lord. My whole being waits, and in His word I put my hope." Waiting engages your whole being. Biblical waiting is not disengagement. It's not resignation, and it's not giving up. Waiting is active trust. It is choosing again and again to place your hope somewhere steady when everything else around you feels so uncertain. As the waiting stretched on, the Lord began whispering truth to my heart. I wrote, "Waiting often feels so long, but there is holy unseen work happening in the minutes and hours. Work that is sacred and refining." I couldn't see that work in the moment for sure, but I can see it now. Waiting wasn't empty time, it was forming time. Waiting has this way of pulling us out of our comforts. It doesn't just slow us down, it exposes us. I wrote, "Waiting stretches and exposes, revealing fears we didn't know we had, doubts we've quietly harbored, pride we thought we'd laid down." Oh, how true that was for me. Back in season 1, I had the privilege of interviewing Kathleen Edelman, who teaches about temperaments or the way we're wired, and how those strengths can also carry shadow sides. She ties temperaments to colors. And if you missed that episode, I definitely encourage you to go back and listen. It will shed such light on how you are designed and created. So I am what's called a red. Shout out to all my reds out there. One of the strongest attributes of a red is leadership, which sounds great until you realize how quickly leadership can turn into control. Reds fix things. We take charge, we move fast, we do not like sitting still. And when something feels out of control, our instinct is to do something, anything to regain footing. That wiring isn't bad, it's actually a gift, but every gift has a shadow. And waiting shines a bright light on those shadows. During Beth's hospice journey, I was completely helpless. There was nothing to fix, nothing I could change, nothing I could make better. And when I couldn't control what was happening to Beth, my natural tendency was to look for something else I could control: my business, my kids, my routines, my eating habits, anything. Control will always try to relocate itself if it isn't surrendered. And God, in His kindness, wouldn't let me stay there. Waiting brought that tendency to the surface, not to shame me, but to refine me. God was doing a deep work in those long, quiet hours, putting to death what needed to die so that dependence on Him could become my default response, not control. Waiting doesn't just slow us down, it reveals us. And if we're willing to pay attention, it becomes one of God's most powerful tools for transformation. So I want to gently ask you, in this season of waiting, if you find yourself in a season of waiting, where do you find yourself reaching for control instead of trust? And what might God be inviting you to lay down so that you can lean more fully into Him? Scripture draws a clear line between control and trust. Isaiah 30 tells us, "In quietness and trust is your strength." The world says, "Take control." Jesus says, "Come to me." Control produces anxiety. Surrender produces peace. Waiting well means noticing when we're grasping and choosing again and again to open our hands instead. This is where I want to be really clear. Waiting is not passive. It is an active trust, a surrendered hope. Waiting well looks like praying honestly, even when you don't have the words, anchoring yourself in Scripture instead of spiraling in your thoughts or turning to other things to numb the pain, writing down what God is teaching you because you will forget otherwise, looking for where God is at work, even in the small, quiet ways. So many of the deep lessons I've learned, the ones about rest and surrender and trust, were jotted down in hospital rooms or during late hospice nights. It felt as if the words were burning in my spirit and I had to write them down or get them out somehow. I read them now and I think, how did I even know to write that? The answer is simple. God was near and He was faithfully teaching me. Waiting also does something deep inside us. I was recently reflecting on these words I wrote during the hospice season. Waiting grows us. It develops perseverance, patience, and a deeper understanding of who God is. I wrote that and I realized waiting teaches us not just to seek answers, but to seek Him. Because when everything else is stripped away, we discover something true and steady. We discover that He is the gift. If you're in a season of waiting right now, waiting for healing, waiting for clarity, waiting for relief, I want you to hear this. The labor of waiting will never be in vain when the Lord is the one we are waiting for. God is not wasting your waiting. He is not absent. He is not careless. There is fruit being formed in the depths, I promise. So I encourage you to join with me in these seasons and continue to wait patiently, prayerfully, attentively, not because waiting is easy, but because God is faithful. And if you're in this season too, you're not alone. Lean into the work of waiting. I can truly say from these last few months that leaning in is so worth it. His presence truly is the reward. And as you head into this week, I want to leave you with this gentle invitation. Where might God be asking you to wait with Him instead of striving without Him? If all you can do right now is wait, know this: you are not behind, you are not failing, and God is not distant. He is very present, and He is doing a much deeper work than you can see. If it feels helpful, choose one small practice this week. Maybe it's writing a few lines each day about where you see God at work. Or maybe it's opening your hands in prayer and simply saying, "Lord, I trust you here," and let that be enough. And I do hope that you will join me again next week. We are going to talk about the practice of gratitude, not just being grateful, but choosing gratitude as a spiritual discipline. It has been one of the most transformational and healing parts of my journey so far, and I'm really looking forward to diving into it with you. Thank you for being here, for listening and walking this road with me. I am so glad that we get to have these conversations, and I look forward to talking again next week. Hey guys, if you are loving the show, would you go find that little follow button or plus sign on your podcast app? This will ensure that you won't miss a single episode. Until next time. This show is an Elizabeth Evans Media Productions.